Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Uncle Mad jumping on for a quick live stream ahead of tonight's matchup between Nashville SC and Chicago Fire. I will be at Geodis Park for the match, as always. I say as always, and spoiler alert, I'm about to miss like 3 straight home games coming up in the next month. But as normally and often I will be at Geodis Park for tonight's match. Game day vlog and everything to follow, so stay tuned for that. But I wanted to jump on quickly just to try to chat about the match a little bit. Also chat a little NFL draft. We're kind of tailing off at the tail end of that. I believe the Titans have made most of their picks. They may have 1 or 2 left. I don't know where we're at in that process. We're into the kind of late stages where there's not anything that you're really, maybe you get a steal, maybe you find some diamond in the rough, but you don't really know what you're getting in the players they're taking right now at this point. So talk a little bit about, obviously Cam Ward, the other picks the Titans made. And then, of course, I'll give some quick thoughts on Shedeur Sanders. But we'll start off with the Nashville SC talk just because big game tonight, big home match at Geodis Park for the boys in gold against Chicago Fire. Sometimes on this, I'll chat a little bit about the previous match, but I kind of said everything I want to say about Seattle on the 615 Locker Room podcast that I'm doing these days with my guy Wormy. So if you're not following that, search it out on YouTube or Spotify. We did a pretty in-depth recap of the last match. Basically, we got smacked in the mouth, didn't react well to it, and hopefully we can bounce back today. But onwards and upwards, we take on Chicago Fire tonight. 2 teams that are basically kind of, in the building process of trying to get themselves up into the upper tier of MLS, into the more of the mix. Chicago has been bad basically for all of Nashville SC's tenure in MLS and for, a while before that even, but made the big swing this offseason, brought in former U.S. men's national team coach Greg Berhalter to take the team over, not only as their new head coach, but also as their director of football, soccer director, general manager, I don't know, whatever title they're using for the person who's basically running the whole operation. Not a whole lot of crazy big swing moves so far for them. They've made some tiny moves that have improved their roster. Definitely a better team this season than we've seen from Chicago Fire in previous seasons, but still kind of, festering. They're a weird team. Like I heard on the Pharmaceutical Soccer podcast, they described it very well, saying they're your old school traditional makes no sense MLS team where they've beaten Vancouver, who's looked like the best team in the entire league. They've tied Inter Miami, who we all know what Inter Miami is. And they've drawn Montreal, who are like one of the worst teams in the league, and had some other bad results. So you just don't know what to expect. But I think, general rule of thumb, generally looking at what this match is going to be, the expectation, home match, Nashville SC should be a win, should be a result, should be 3 points. If we see the Nashville SC that we saw against Charlotte, against Cincinnati, against Montreal, against Philadelphia, that's what the expectation should be here today. If we see the Nashville SC that we had in that weird 15-minute stretch against Seattle, anything could kind of happen. Obviously, for Nashville SC, the big thing is Walker Zimmerman's out again. The concussion issue continues on, which is, hate to see him out. You hate to not have him be a part of your team, but at the same time, an injury like that, you don't want to rush back. You don't want to get him back before it's too soon. So he needs to take all the time he needs. But, definitely, I think for the first time really since he's been out last week, we really saw how much we miss him when he's out. Because, I don't think, that our center backs from the last match, our defense from the last match, was terrible. I think Palacios has been pretty solid since he's come in. I think Jack Marr continues to be okay. He's definitely takes a step back when Walker's not his partner next to him. But I think just the organization, just the ability to have Walker be the guy that would have grabbed us by this, shirt collar and say hey, chill out, guys, calm down after that first goal. I don't think we would have spiraled and given up 3 goals in 15 minutes the way we did if Walker was out there. But he's out again. Hopefully we learn some stuff from that. It's kind of good, when you're in a rebuilding phase, when you're kind of building yourself up as a new kind of team, a redesigned, roster. You kind of want adversity in a weird way. I think, BJ Callahan, even as a coach, that was a learning moment for him. We talked about this on 615 Locker Room, that he said before the match, we're not going to change our principles. We're not going to change our tactics. We're not going to change our approach just because we're going on the road to Seattle. We are who we are. We play how we play. And truth be told, if you're a high-level team, if you're like a Man City, if you're like a Barcelona, if you're like a probably an Inter Miami in MLS. If you're like a Columbus Crew, even, you can kind of get away with that. Nashville SC is not in the stage of their development, stage of their roster build, stage of their team build where they can just go to a tough opponent on a huge road trip on the complete opposite side of the country and just say, we're going to play exactly the same way we always play. We probably should have from the get-go not parked the bus, not played Gary ball or anything like that, but probably definitely should have been a little bit more defensive-minded coming out of the gates because, seemed like the first 10 minutes or so we were pretty good, had a lot of aggressiveness. We were on the front foot. We were attacking really well. And then that 15-minute window hit, and we kind of fell apart because Seattle figured some things out. They kind of saw where the holes were, where the openings were, and then from there, they were able to take advantage of it. I said I wasn't going to talk about the Seattle game, and now I've just spent like the last 5 minutes talking about the Seattle game. But, is what it is. It's probably more so that I'm speaking on that because, like, really, when it comes to Chicago, outside of the Greg Berhalter hire, I really don't know much about their team. Like, if you look at the thumbnail for this video, I used Ante Rossoff as the graphic for the representation of Chicago Fire because, like, I don't know, couldn't name a single player on their team. I listened to like 3 different podcasts previewing the match, and it's already gone one ear and out the other of who they've got, what they're supposed to be good at. I know one of their better players is a center back that's out injured. I don't know who he is or what his name is because I've already forgot all that. So, apologies for not being able to talk better about Chicago Fire. I just don't know anything. I knew they had Jordan Shaqiri for several years, and he's gone now. So, but I will say, I've heard this in other places, but it does seem like, if we're going to get a result here, if we're going to get 3 points against Chicago, this is a good time to catch them just because they're likely to be one of the teams that's going to be more active maybe in the summer window, trying to pull some players over from Europe than they have been in the winter window. They've been heavily linked in the last couple of weeks to a move for Manchester City's Kevin De Bruyne. Be interesting to see if that happens. I don't know. I don't know. He'd be an interesting one to see what he would do in MLS because, that style of player, that type of player has not translated well to the MLS. Once they're physically and not able to perform at the high levels of Europe, it doesn't really translate to MLS. Like you think of like a Frank Lampard, Steven Gerrard. Once those type of players can't hang in Europe, it's not like they come over and dazzle in MLS. It's more like players like a Messi, like a Zlatan, the guys that have all these extra dynamic things in their game who've been able to still kind of keep it going when they come to MLS. So I don't know. And he could be different. He could be more like a Pirlo who, because he's got that range of passing, that ability, he could sit deep and just kind of almost like even a Busquets to a degree, just kind of pick passes out, pick shots out, and just kind of still have a little something to offer. So we'll see what happens there. I know there's at least 2 or 3 other MLS teams that are sniffing around. At last report, like Inter Miami of all teams owns his discovery rights, which is a weird, outdated thing that MLS still does, where like players, whoever ultimately would be the team that he would go to in MLS, if it's not Inter Miami, would have to trade some GAM, some TAM, some WHAM, some BAM, some thank you, ma'am, or something to Miami to get the right to sign Kevin De Bruyne. So we'll see how that all plays out as we get closer to the summer and the opening of the transfer window, because it has been confirmed Manchester City is not going to re-sign him. He won't be back there. So he's going somewhere, will it be to stay in Europe? Will it be to maybe a Saudi Arabia deal? I think I've read mostly he's not really considering Saudi Arabia. So it seems like unless there's like a European team that wants to still give him a shot to stick around for a couple more years, it's going to be MLS, and where that'll be will be interesting to see. But he's not in Chicago yet, so that's one less thing we have to worry about in this match tonight. So, just generally, we hope we get back to what we've seen from Nashville SC. The big thing, I think, and we've said this, it's becoming just like banging your head against the wall, but we're creating chances. We're just not scoring. So, if Nashville SC can continue that, but actually get on the right end of some of the chances they're creating, finish some of the chances they're creating, I think we'll be okay. We'll see what happens. I'll be there live. We'll do a game day vlog, document everything, and share it on the back end. Should be out tomorrow. Usually try to get those out the day after the match. So stay tuned for that. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. If you're just popping in somehow, randomly stumbled upon this live stream, subscribe. Come back for more. It's always going to be fun. Quick little chat. NFL Titans. We had the probably least exciting first overall draft pick in recent memory. I mean, that's just the Titans in a nutshell, is to have the number 1 overall pick in the draft and to have it be, kind of a consensus for a while who we were going to take, have that player not be somebody that like the national media or anybody outside of Tennessee or even a lot of people in Tennessee aren't necessarily excited about, and that's Cameron Ward, the quarterback coming out of Miami. That's just the Titans in a nutshell. Is to have the most. I mean, we were so uninteresting. This is just typical Titans. Just fan complaint is we were so uninteresting to the national media that we took Cameron Ward, number 1 overall. I believe ESPN almost immediately cut to Shedeur Sanders and started talking about how the debate. There was a debate at one point in time. Would it be Cam Ward? Would it be Shedeur Sanders? And we see Shedeur Sanders here. He knows he's not number 1 overall, so he's got to wonder where he is going to end up going. Didn't barely talk about Cam Ward at all. And then right almost immediately after we made the Cam Ward pick, Jacksonville traded up to the 2nd pick to get Travis Hunter. So then all the media focus went to, we got a big trade. What's this going to be? Who's coming up? The Jaguars are coming up. They're getting Travis Hunter. And it was like, we draft what we hope is going to be our quarterback of the future, game-changing franchise quarterback. And she's like, let's talk about Shedeur Sanders for about 2 minutes. Let's move on and talk about this big trade that just happened at the number 2 pick. So very typical, very par for the course when it comes to Tennessee Titans and the way things seem to go for us. But I really don't know what to think about Cam Ward. I mean, it's hard to ever know what to think about draft prospects in the NFL. It seems like the most unpredictable, league, the most unpredictable draft there is in all sports. I like that the team seems fully bought in on him. The general manager, Bazinga, whatever his name is, Chad Brinker, Brian Callahan, they seem all pretty aligned. He's the guy. They're really behind him. They're really supportive of him. And with our kind of recent attempts to find a franchise quarterback, that has not been the case. Vrabel seemed to not like Will Levis. I don't know who liked Malik Willis, but nobody within 3 months liked Malik Willis. So just to have a guy where it seems like at least, they might all be idiots and not know what they're doing, but all the people kind of steering the ship seem to be aligned, that they like Cam Ward, that he's a guy they want, that, they weren't going to entertain what sounded like some pretty good offers in terms of what maybe had been offered to the Titans to trade out of the number 1 pick. So that gives me hope that but I guess you got to believe that the guys know what they're talking about when they've all aligned and said, this is the guy, Cam Ward, we're all behind him. This is the guy. If they're idiots and they're dumb and they don't know what they're talking about, then it all just kind of is for nothing. And it's all stupid anyway. But we'll like the pick. I mean, I've thought in my mind, based on the projections, based on what, draft analysts have said, they're saying if he had come out last year, which was in a very quarterback heavy draft, he would have been anywhere from the 4th to 7th best quarterback available, putting him in kind of the Bo Nix, Michael Penix range from last year. So certainly not looking like he's, the next great thing. But at the same time, once again, I think the NFL draft is the hardest to project clearly. I mean, look at the last 2 number 1 overall picks. Bryce Young's not lighting the world up in Carolina. Caleb Williams had pretty much a season to forget his first year in Chicago. Trevor Lawrence, down in Jacksonville, was a former first overall pick at quarterback and is yet to really do much of anything. So it's all kind of a crapshoot. It's all kind of a roll of the dice. If Cam Ward can just be a solid, passable quarterback who doesn't kill us, keeps us in the mix for the next 10 to 15 years, that's a huge win for me. I was thinking, looking around the league, if he can be anywhere close to what Jalen Hurts has become for the Eagles, I'll take that. Even if he's not quite Jalen Hurts level. If he's I think of another comparable quarterback. If he's what Kirk Cousins for years in Minnesota was, if he was what, Derek Carr was throughout the years for the Raiders, that's just a sad thing that's what I'm aspiring for. But we have in the history of the Titans not had at least a long-term, whether it's a superstar, Pro Bowler, just a long-term, we know who our quarterback is for better or worse in the history of the Titans franchise. We had McNair for the first little wave, but that was 5 to 6 years before injuries and everything caught up and we had to blow up the whole team because of the salary cap stuff. And Vince Young doesn't pan out. Kerry Collins is kind of a patch for 2 to 3 years. Hasselback's kind of a patch for 2 to 3 years. Mariota comes in, wash out. I totally forgot. I didn't even mention Jake Locker, who was just a disaster. And most recently, obviously Ryan Tannehill was kind of the patch guy for 2 to 3 years. We've had draft picks that didn't work and patch guys who were okay for 2 to 3 years. We've never had the long-term face of the franchise, solid, just give us a good 10 years quarterback. And if Cam Ward can be that, I'll take it. It's not necessarily what you want out of the first overall pick. If you're taking the first overall pick, you're expecting a perennial Pro Bowler, borderline Hall of Famer. I don't even want that. I'm just so beaten down as a Titans fan, particularly at the quarterback position. I will take a guy who's here for 10 to 15 years and plays solid, does well, keeps us in the mix for playoffs year in and year out. That's all I'm asking for, and that's probably too much to ask. But the rest of the Titans picks were, solid. Nobody no big name superstar stuff. It seemed like some good players. Like, the reports are pretty good. The safety we got in the third round, people seem to be really excited about him. He seems like a throwback to like the John Robinson era, where like he's coming off a season where he only played 3 games. He's coming off a torn ACL, but if not for the injury, a lot of people thought he would have been a first round pick. So, that's going back to the well and that kind of stuff for the Titans. The second round guy, he seems like he's kind of looked at as like a potential Michael Parsons guy, where he played mostly at middle linebacker in college and late in his career switched to edge. And so maybe he hasn't even hit his full potential yet, because now he's going to be like the Michael Parsons. Now that he's an edge, he's going to be a big time pass rush player, but a lot of high praise for him. The wide receivers we got kind of fit a need. I like that we got the one guy from Stanford whose name I can't pronounce when we did, because like they were talking about us trying to get him in like the 3rd or 4th round, and then he falls and we get him late. So that seems like a good thing. Got an offensive lineman, got a tight end, got a DB. So, filled needs in terms of players we brought in. Never know who's going to be solid, who's going to be do anything. We got a running back who I'm very excited about. His name is, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but it's Kalel Mullins, I think. And my buddy texted me just before I went live and said that it's Kalel is his first name, which if you're a comic book person, that dash isn't in his name, but that's Kal-El. And he actually confirmed, he said he is named after Superman, which Kal-El, nerd talk, nerd corner here. Kal-El is the Kryptonian birth name of Superman. We got a running back who's named after Superman. He's my new favorite player on the team already. He might not even make the roster at the end of the day, but I'm excited to have something fun like that on the team. So overall, like the Titans draft, I thought it was pretty good. I think, we kind of fell in line with what the, consensus of this draft was, that there's not a whole lot of superstar spectacular players, but there's a lot of solid, starters. So that kind of feels like where the Titans landed, is that we got some players who probably can come in, be starters, be contributors, but I don't know that we got anybody that's going to set the world on fire or be major time game changers for the team. So we'll see how all that goes. My guy Wormy, my co-host on 615 Locker Room Podcast, just jumped in the chat. He said, "What's up, man? Just talking a little ball, a little soccer, a little football." And the next kind of thing I was going to talk about, now we've kind of talked through the Titan stuff. Sanders 5th round, next Tom Brady. Yeah, that is such a weird one, man. I'm sure by the time everything's done and dusted, and I've kind of read up and caught up more on everything that's happened, I'll have a lot more to say on our podcast together about the Sanders thing. But that is just so bizarre to me. I've followed football pretty closely ever since the Titans came here, and I can't remember a quarterback going from during the college football season, a lot of people thinking he was going to be like a potential number 1 overall draft pick, to 5th round. I mean, Wormy, brings up the Tom Brady thing. I don't think anybody at any point in Tom Brady's college career ever expected him to be anything. Even if he got drafted, it would have been a hit for the Tom Brady Michigan player. Sanders, was it the hype from Dion? Was it something that's changed? I've heard a few things. I'm still reading. I'm still trying to get some information on what exactly happened there. But it is, to be a guy who at certain points was looked at as a potential number 1 overall pick. I mean, Mel Kiper, who he's an idiot. He's kind of just the scream at the clouds, He's only in a job because he screams loud and says things. He's not necessarily smart about anything. He had Shedeur Sanders as his number 1 player in the entire draft this year, and he got drafted in the 5th round. So definitely one of the weirder, where a player was projected, where a player was thought to go, to where they actually ended up going of all time. And the crazy thing about the Sanders thing of all is they drafted Dylan Gabriel, the quarterback out of Oregon, in the 3rd round, I think, and then came back and drafted Shedeur Sanders in the 5th round. Like, Brown's going to brown, man. Browns are going to brown. The Cleveland Browns are always going to find a way to do something entertaining, stupid, and idiotic. Like, they made this trade. They got out of the Travis Hunter spot, picked up all the trades. They're starting to pick up picks to where they can potentially start to restock and rebuild after the crippling, horrible decision they made a few years ago to trade for Deshaun Watson. And with the picks they're picking up, and they traded up to get Shedeur Sanders too. It's always nice as a Tennessee Titans fan who's been not a great franchise, not the most successful, to have teams like the Browns still be out there, because every once in a while you feel bad. You have a terrible season like the Titans just did. Worst team in the NFL last year. Picked number 1 overall. Feel as low as we can possibly feel. And then you got a team like the Browns that just swoops in and makes you go, thank God we're not the Browns. At least thank God we are not the Browns. So, yeah, what a wild experience that was for this draft. But yeah, I just want to do a quick one today. Just jump on, talk a little stuff here. I'm excited for tonight's Nashville SC match. Little preview for my personal experience that you'll see on the vlog when it comes out. I have, once again, I think I've done this too many matches this season. I got to call my ticket rep and make sure they don't think I'm just never going to games anymore. But switching over to club section tonight, so be sitting over there getting the all-inclusive food and beverage tonight, so that'll be a fun experience. I kind of had to, because my 2 friends that I normally sit with at the games are out of town this weekend, and so the wife, Jesta, was going to go with me, and she don't sit anywhere but club. If she's going to a Nashville SC game, we got to sit club, so we'll be over there tonight, so we'll have a cool experience documenting the time over in club, which I also kind of was looking forward to doing a club section sit tonight, because this is I think I'm going to the U.S. Open Cup match, and then that's my last Nashville SC home match till June, July. I don't know, because I'm going to be on vacation for 3 straight home matches. So weird little stretch coming up, but happy to be going out there tonight. Wormy says in the chat, so did the number 1 come out of being retired jersey so Ward can wear it? Seems pointless to retire it. They did officially say that they're going to let him come out of retirement, or they're going to unretire it and let him wear it. He went to Warren Moon. Personally, they had a conversation. Warren Moon is the player who previously wore number 1 for the Oilers. It was the Oilers era before the Titans that it was retired for. They had a conversation, and Warren Moon decided, he was okay with it. He gave Ward his blessing to wear it. His logic was, he's retired as the number 1 jersey for the Oilers. There should be a number 1 for the Titans. And he said it was interesting. And this is only, don't exactly know how good Warren Moon, he's legendary Hall of Fame NFL quarterback, so you trust his judgment a little bit, but he said he's been asked by players in the past for the Titans about it, and he's never really entertained it. But talking to Cam Ward, seeing his game, seeing what he represented, seeing what he's all about, he felt like he was a worthy person to be able to carry the number 1 jersey for the Titans going forward. And and he also kind of said in the logic that he was retired as number 1 for the Oilers. So he felt okay with a Titans player wearing number 1 now, kind of getting a new era there. And jersey number retiring thing is it's kind of weird. You think about it, there's only so many numbers. At some point in time, you can, I always think about this with the Yankees. The Yankees have so many retired numbers. They feel like they're just so strict and by the book, they'll never go against it. But at some point in time, you're going to run out of numbers if you just retire every number. Particularly in football, where players have to wear a certain number. There's only handful of numbers quarterbacks can wear. So if we don't ever unretire numbers, we're gonna have a problem. But I could have gone either way on that. Warren Moon predates my Titans fandom, because that was the Oilers era. So I think I'd say, I'm fine with it. I'm okay with it. And I think it's cool that we're gonna, get his blessing and have that kind of come forward. Wormy, which club? I believe we're going to be in Goalpost tonight. I think that's where I bought the CO1 is the seat number, which I believe is aligned with Goalpost. So I think that's where we're going to be tonight. That's my favorite one of the clubs. If you're not familiar with the club sections at Nashville SC, Geodis Park, there's Goalpost Club, which I think is also sometimes also referred to as Los Cientos, sponsored by the tequila brand. It's kind of a more of a sports bar kind of setup in there. I kind of like it. That's probably my favorite one I've experienced. The other one I've been to several times is the WeHo Club, which is kind of more like set up like a Nashville sports venue type place or music venue type place. So there's usually like a live band playing and stuff like that, which is like, I'm here for soccer. I don't need to see like some future Broadway legend over there. So, and there's a middle one. The Premier Club, I think, is the middle. I don't think I've ever sat in Premier Club. Those tickets are usually a little bit more. Actually, no, I don't think I've ever sat in that section, but I don't know. But that's where we're going to be. My buddy just texted me. Quinn Ewers hasn't been drafted yet. I'm not terribly surprised by that. Like, I never thought he was that good of a quarterback. So, let's see. Tighten Up Ohio, late to the show. Favorite pick of the 2025 draft for the Titans. I want to pull this name up because if I'm going to answer this question, I don't want to say, hey, that just guy, and not say it correctly. So let me find the name of the player because, I like all the picks. Like I said, I think we did pretty good on paper. Like, I don't know that we got anybody that's going to be like a, superstar, game changer, legend, but I think we did a good job of getting players that have a chance to be solid, contributors. And that's what our team needs. Our team was so bad last year. We just need people who can actually like play the game of all things. I'm very tempted to pick Kal-El Mullings since he's named after Superman. Like he's my new favorite player on the team, but in terms of a, draft pick, I don't know what he really brings to the table. I haven't seen anything of him or read anything about his projection. I just like that name. But in terms of guys who I think can maybe potentially be a very early on, contributor, a big kind of player for us. And even though I've looked up his name, I'm definitely going to mispronounce it. The wide receiver out of Stanford, Alec Iomanor, probably mispronounced that badly, but he's probably the one I'm most excited about just because, not knowing much about him. I know, everybody was passing around the video where he just torched Travis Hunter when Stanford played Colorado. So, the kind of, he's already beat, a guy that's going to be one of our division opponents multiple times. But, people were talking about him being a good pick for us, as early as the third round. So, to have gotten him much later than his name was first being brought up, I thought, that was kind of the guy who, if we're looking at him and thinking about, can we get him in the third round? And then we end up getting him whatever it was, late fourth, early fifth. That to me is screams there's something good there. That's something we should be excited about. And he said, hey, Titans, Ohio, we're right on the same page. Honestly, Stanford's wide receiver is my favorite at the moment. Yeah, I don't know much about him outside of the fact that I heard his name being brought up as early as the third round. And I've seen the tape where he's torched Travis Hunter. So those two things enough, that gives me more information about him than I have about a lot of our other picks. So, I'll go with him. The safety that we got in the third round seems a lot of people really like him too. So I'm excited to see what that comes up. But obviously he's coming off the injury. So we'll see what happens there. Wormy says, goalpost is the best in my opinion. You need to try the terraces. Vibes are so weird. Yeah, the terraces, I think they're from my understanding, from what I've heard from other people, and from just kind of gauging that, is they're usually more corporate people. They're not necessarily people who are there for an actual soccer game. Companies usually have those and kind of distribute those out to employees. Sometimes whole groups kind of block it off. And so it's you're kind of, if you buy up there, sometimes you might be your 2 or 3 person group might be just amongst 20 or 30 other people. Goalpost. For some reason, I think I've done goalpost, but maybe I'm mixing the clubs up at some point in time, but I don't know. But the other one's kind of club that I've also done that I think is kind of cool is I like corner kicks. There's the 2 little corner sections that are blocked off where they have all-inclusive food and beverage. It's not as high-end food. High-end. It's just hot dogs and burgers. But I like the seating in the corner kick section because it's you got your own little private seat and a little counter area in front of you there too. So some good stuff there. But yeah, I have to look at, I feel like I've done goalposts. Maybe I'm confusing the names on a few of these. I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, going to be at the Nashville SC match tonight. Should be a fun experience. Can't wait to be there. Actually got to leave probably here in the next 10, 15 minutes because one of the cool things about club is they open the gates at 6. It's one of the few times I try to get in the stadium that early is because as soon as that gate opens, you can get that free all-inclusive food and beverage. That's the way to go. Remy says goalpost is the sports bar. Okay, then I've been to there because that's the one I like the best. That's the one I like the best. So I was in there few different times. I've been there when March Madness and stuff was going on. So if there's another game or college football going on, obviously you're there for Nashville SC. You're there to see the boys in gold. But if there's other good games and other stuff to watch, it's cool to be in that one too. So maybe I'm getting mixed up about. And I think some of them have different names. Sometimes they use the sponsor. I know Lo Ciento. There's one club where Lo Ciento, the tequila brand, is the sponsor, but then there's another name for it as well. So I don't know. We'll see where I'm at. I'm somewhere in the club section tonight. I'll be there. If you want to find out where I actually end up, since I can't seem to be 100% sure where it is, subscribe to the channel, turn the bell on for notifications, because we will have a video from the game documenting the full experience there and more to come. And if you've enjoyed the talk about the match, if you enjoyed the talk about the Titans and what they did in the NFL draft in general and want to see more stuff that we haven't even gotten to yet, join me and Wormy, who just said have fun, on the 615 Locker Room podcast. That's where we kind of go, here on the channel, I kind of go all over the place, do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. 615 Locker Room, we kind of stay in the sports realm a little bit more with a little bit of, we bounce around through a little bit of mixed bag in there, but it's a fun chat. So if you watch this and you're like, I like this guy, Uncle Mad's vibe, but I'm so tired of him being the only person talking for 30 to 40 minutes. Check out 615 Locker Room podcast, because that's where you get to see somebody else talk other than me while also getting a little bit from me as well. So check out me and Wormy over there. Check out me here on the channel if you're not subscribed already. Have fun. Enjoy. If you see me at the match, give me a shout. Say, hey, I always like meeting people. Otherwise, enjoy I'm doing so few vlogs recently. I got to get some non-Nashville SC vlogs in, which there are some. I'm going on vacation. Wink. Enjoy your life. Enjoy your bagels. Come on, you boys in gold. Jessica's screaming about something. I don't send it over there.